Okay, so good morning. We are going to add to our table of contents. First of all, page 70, simplifying radicals. Go ahead and add that now. And then we are going to be doing this problem right here on page 65. Okay, and our notes for it are right next door on page 64. Pause your video. You are solving this by factoring. If you don't know what to do, look at page 64. Okay, welcome back. So remember, our first step for solving by factoring is we always have to get it equal to 0 and put it in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 3k to both sides. So I end up with 2k squared plus 3k minus 14 equals 0. And notice how I nestled that 3k between the squared and the constant so that it's in standard form. Now I'm ready to do my A, B, and C. So my A this time is 2, my B is 3, and my C is negative 14. So I'm ready to make the X. Remember, at the top of my X goes my A times my C, my negative 28. And on the bottom goes my B. Okay, now I've got to find the numbers that multiply to make negative 28 and that add to make negative 14. So 1 times negative 28 is the first one. That makes negative 27, so that's not it. Then I would do negative 1 times positive 28, but that's going to make positive 27, so I know that's not going to be it either. 2 times negative 14 gives me, oh, I'm sorry. I totally made a mistake here. This isn't adding up to negative 14. It's got to add up to the B. What am I thinking? And the B this time is 3. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. 2 times negative 14, that multiplies to make negative 28, and that adds up to negative 12. So I got to keep going. 3 doesn't work. 4 and 7. So 4 times negative 7. Ooh, that makes negative 3, so I must just have to do its bestie, which is negative 4 and positive 7, which gives me positive 3, winner, winner, chicken dinner. So I got negative 4 and I got positive 7. And remember, I always divide these by A. So my A is 2, my A is 2. That guy can't simplify, but this one becomes negative 2. Okay, so now I'm ready to put it inside the parentheses. So I've got 2 parentheses. I've got a K minus 2 and a K plus 7 over 2. Remember, I've got to do the loop-de-loo with the denominator. So I've got K minus 2 and 2K plus 7. Okay, and now to solve this, I'm going to set both of those equal to 0. So K minus 2 equals 0, which that'll just be K equals positive 2. Okay, and then over here I've got 2K plus 7 equals 0. I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. So I got 2K equals negative 7. And then I'm going to divide it by 2. And I got K equals negative 7 over 2. So those are my 2 answers. 2 and negative 7 over 2. Okay, so today we are going to be working with simplifying radicals. This is our new learning target. You guys kind of got a preview of it on Friday after our assessment, but this is something you are going to totally do in Algebra 2 all of the time. So please flip to page 70 and write simplifying radicals at the very top of the page. So page 70, add simplifying radicals to the very top of the page right now. Right here, we are going to write perfect squares, and then we're going to list this in one big column. So all the numbers from 1 all the way down to the square root of 400, that is positive or negative 20. So pause the video, write all of these all in one big row down the side of your paper. Great, you're done. So let's start working it. So the steps to simplifying radicals, we always break it up to find the biggest perfect square that divides evenly. Now the divides evenly is important. Remember when we were doing the factors for the greatest common factor? Dividing evenly means no decimals. We want a whole number for it to divide evenly. So no decimals. Once we find that, we're going to write our square root as two factors using multiplication. So we're going to be multiplying this time. And we're always going to write the perfect square first. Finally, we're going to simplify the perfect square. So let's practice. Make sure you have this. If you don't have this, write it down, pause your video. You know the deal. So, square root of 64. Now, here's a condensed list. I only put this here so we can reference it while we're talking, since we can't see the whole shebang over on this side. You do not need to write this. You have it written down already. Okay, you do not need to write this. Write this. Okay. So let's talk. Square root of 64. If I am looking at my list, and I always look bottom up. So square root of 64, OMG, look at this. Square root of 64 is straight up on my list. I've also got it right here that I can look at. So square root of 64 is positive or negative 8. So let's talk about why that is. So square root just means that a number times itself makes it. So when I'm thinking about the numbers 8, and I do 8 times 8, I know that equals 64. But also, negative 8 times negative 8 also equals 64. So in order to write this like the easy way, because mathematicians are kind of lazy, instead of writing 8 or negative 8, what they write is plus or minus 8. And that really just stands for positive or negative 8. Okay, so that's all this means right here. And that's what the square root of 64 is. Now, sometimes that number is not going to be so nice. It's not just going to be on the side of my paper where I could just circle it and write down the answers. Sometimes I'm going to have to actually do some work to find it. So this next one, we've got the square root of 108. Okay, so when I look at the list, remember I go bottom up. Okay, so 108 is between 100 and 121. Okay, and my goal is to find the biggest one that will break into it evenly. Okay, I can break it up into. So that means no decimals. So that's where I turn to my handy dandy decimals. Okay, so 108 is between 100 and 121. So the first number I have to try is 100. So I'm going to go 108 and divide it by 100, just like when we were doing factoring, and we looked to see if it divided evenly. Now look at this. I got a decimal. It is out. So 100 is off of my list, and I can't use it. So next up, I got to try 81. Oh, another decimal. 81's off my list. Next up, 64. Ooh, decimal. No. 64 is off. Next, I bet you already know, we're going to use 49 and see if that works. 49, nope, another decimal. So what number do you think we're going to use next? If you said 36, you are right on the money. So next up, I'm going to use 36. Hey, look at this right here. When I divided 36, I got 3. That is a whole number. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to break up 108 into the square root of 36 times the square root of 3. Because 36 times 3 is 108. It's true. Okay, so now that I did that, I can go ahead and write what the square root of 36 is. The square root of 36 is positive or negative 6. And the square root of 3 isn't on my list anywhere. Notice that it's not up there. So I just leave it. And I don't need to check any further because I chose the biggest perfect square. That's why we do that. We know that whatever we're left with is not going to be a perfect square at the end when we do that. Okay, let's try it again. Next one I've got is 80, square root of 80. So again, I look on my perfect squares list, and I look from the bottom up, and I look at where 80 falls. So 80 is between 81 and 64. That's where 80 goes. So I'm going to try 64 up to find out which one will divide evenly. So I start with my 80, and I divide it by 64, decimal. So that means 64 is out. Next up, I have to try 49. Oops, 49. Again, decimal. So that's out. Next up is 36. Decimal. So go ahead and pause your video. See if you can find the biggest perfect square that goes into 80 evenly. No decimals. Okay, welcome back. I'm going to keep trying. We're going to see. 25, decimal. And I got to try 16. Hey, 16 it is. So I'm going to write it as the square root of 16 times the square root of 5, because 16 times 5 is 80. I can rewrite it that way. Now, remember, looking off onto my list, square root of 16 is plus or minus 4. And square root of 5 isn't on my list, so I'm just going to leave it as square root of 5. And that is how I simplify the square root of 80. Why don't you try now? Go ahead and pause your video and try to simplify the square root of 175, the square root of 28, and the square root of 72. Okay, hopefully you've done that now. So 175, the first number I have to try is 196. 196. I'm a big fat liar. No. 175, I have to try 169 because 196 is bigger than it, so I know it won't go in there. So I know 175 is right there. So 165 is the first number I'm going to try. And I hope you're like me and you got 7 as your answer when you divided by 25. So 25 was the first one I found. So it's square root of 25 times the square root of 7. And remember, I simplify my radical, so that leaves me with positive or negative. We're always going to write positive or negative 5, and then square root of 7. Okay, with 28, let's see what you guys got. The 28 falls right here between 36 and 25. So you've got to try 25, 16, 9, and the first one that works is 4. So 28 divided by 4 is 7. So I got square root of 4 times square root of 7. And notice that the perfect square is not always the biggest number. It's just the number on this list that breaks up first, okay, when we work bottom up. So square root of 4 is plus or minus 2, and then square root of 7 stays square root of 7. Okay, finally, we've got to work. Finally, we have to do 72, and hopefully you already did 72 and you've got an answer. Are you ready to shout it at your computer? So 72 falls right here. So we've got to try 64 on up. Now, if you said 9, well, 9 is a perfect square that goes into 72, but be careful. It is not the first perfect square that can go into it when we're working our way up, because actually 36 goes into it evenly. So if you did 9 or you did 4, that means you didn't get the biggest one. You must get the biggest one. So for this, we've got to do 36, which is bigger than 9, times the square root of 2. And so I got plus or minus 6 square root of 2. Okay, you have learned everything you need to know about simplifying radicals in order to learn about the quadratic formula coming up next. Now, if you need a challenge, stay tuned. I've got a video about operations with radicals that is going to get you so excited. Good luck with your practice. You've got this.